just adjusted the soundpost on this violin and it sounds amazing. This is actually one of the new instruments that I'm going to be bringing into my shop really soon. It's very exciting. But today I'm going to talk to you about the soundpost. So you often hear about the soundpost, but what does it actually do? And later, I'm going to do something really interesting. I'm going to actually play the violin for you without a soundpost. So I'll take it out. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit a second soundpost to the violin and see what it sounds like that. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the soundpost and its purpose. So the soundpost sits inside the instrument, and it sits inside the instrument here. I'm going to use my little soundpost tool to show you where it is. So it's just inside, somewhere about here. It's quite difficult to see, so I'm actually going to show you on a different violin. I am going to show you on this violin. Yes, I cut it open, but it's okay. It was one of those really cheap violins that you wouldn't want anyone to play anyway. So this is just for demonstration purposes and teaching purposes. So the soundpost actually sits underneath the bridge, not directly underneath the bridge. It actually sits slightly down below and slightly inside from the bridge. So you can see where the bridge is, and then it's slightly towards the bottom of the violin, usually about a top plate thickness away, but sometimes less. And then it just sits, if you look at it this way, it's sitting just inside from the bridge feet here. So the edge of the soundpost underneath should be just there where I'm pointing. So the soundpost does two things. Now, firstly, of course, with 27 kilos bearing down onto the bridge and the top plate, which is huge. I mean, that's kind of, I think that's actually a 10-year-old child standing on the violin at all times. So with that kind of weight on the bridge, obviously the instrument's going to need a little bit of support. So on the G, on the lower strings, it's actually got the bass bar, which you can see behind here. Now the shape of this particular bass bar in here is actually not particularly good. The reason behind that is it's a cheap violin. That's why I cut it open. And so then the soundpost sits on the other side, and it strengthens and supports the top plate on this side, on the treble side. But the other thing that it does, and that's far more important, it actually transfers the vibration. So first the strings bring the vibration onto the bridge moves, and then those vibrations get transferred onto the top plate, and then through the soundpost actually get transferred onto the back. And that's actually what creates the air column inside the instrument, and it's a big part of what creates that unique violin sound. A bit later, I'm actually going to take out the soundpost and fully, and we can hear the sound difference, what it sounds like without a soundpost. And then I thought, just for fun, I'll actually put in a second soundpost. That's gonna, just something crazy to do. Actually, I'm going to do that first, because then when I knock it over, yeah, it's going to be much easier. Okay, I'll do that first. Now that you know the purpose of the soundpost, let me tell you a little bit about it. So the soundpost, in some languages, the soundpost is actually called the soul. So in French, it's I can't remember, la N or something like that. So the soul, it basically means the soul. To me, the combination of the bridge and the soundpost are really the soul of the instrument. Like between the bridge and the soundpost, you can do some, like adjusting those two things, you can have the biggest impact on the sound as long as the instrument is actually well made. A slight movement of the soundpost can have a huge impact on the sound. So for example, if I was to move the soundpost, you know, normally I do this through the F-hole, and I use this tool, which is the soundpost setter, and I actually move the soundpost slightly by knocking it across. And a very slight movement, see how I just moved it out a little bit, will actually create a big difference. Now the microphone, this camera, is actually not good enough to pick up the subtle difference in the sound, but if I had a really good high level microphone, you could probably hear it really well. The other thing that's important to change the sound is actually the length of the soundpost. Obviously, the longer you make the soundpost, the more it pushes the top plate and the back apart and actually creates a bit of tension. And that will change the sound as well. Like a too long soundpost will quite often make the instrument sound really tight and not so good. So, and a too short soundpost might just make it sound a bit wobbly. But also, like if you give the instrument the slightest knock, the soundpost can fall over, which is always a scary experience. Finally, the thing that's really important for a soundpost is that it's fitted by a professional violin maker, because the soundpost should fit 100% to the back plate down here, and it should also fit 100% to the top plate up here. So they should fit perfectly and really snug. The better it fits, the better it's going to be for the sound as well. So it needs to be a really clear and good and strong connection. Fantastic. So now you know how the soundpost works. Now, one really important thing is, don't ever try to mess with a soundpost yourself. Like we've had, I've had people. I've had musicians that have decided to play with a soundpost. One or two musicians that I know have actually even opened violin shops and played around with soundposts and actually damaged the inside of the instrument by pulling the soundpost so tight that it actually left great big indents in the plates, and those kinds of things. So it's never something that a player should play with. You always got to leave that one to a professional, and not just a professional. It has to be a properly trained professional. This is really important. Like I said, it's like the soul of the instrument, and actually a minute movement can have a significant change in the sound. Quite often I will create a big change with about 0.1 or 0.2 of a millimeter. Now I'll show you how much that is. So 0.2 of a millimeter is, let us have a look, whoopsies. Is this much. Yes, can you see the little gap through there? It's exactly this much. It is totally crazy. That much movement in the soundpost will actually create a big change in the tone. So it's a really fine and subtle thing. Anyway, let's go back and have a look and see how it actually affects the instrument. The biggest effect you're always going to hear on the bass side of the instrument, because the treble side doesn't use as much of the violin body for resonance. So let's have a quick play. So this is going to be the exciting moment where I'm about to take out the soundpost and try the instrument. Now don't try this at home, and I really mean it. I'm a trained violin maker, and if I break this violin, I can fix it. Also, it's mine, and you know, and if I break it, I'll be really sad, but I promise you I won't. I've done this before and I know how to do it safely. But you should never take the soundpost out and leave the string tension on for too long. I'll talk to you about that afterwards as well. So I'm just going to play, just play across the strings quickly. And I'm going to do the same with the soundpost, with a second soundpost, and then without the soundpost. So here goes. So this is with the soundpost. I didn't really think this through. I need something on the E string as well. That's better. So let's see. I just got to remember for the next time. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put in a second sound post. Still too long. 1 second. Okay, let's try one more time. Now I'm hoping that this is right. It's a bit hard to fit this sound post because I have to fit it in with the bass bar on the other side. So here we go. Now let's see. So here's the sound post, here is the instrument, and I did it, yes. Okay, here we go. This is 2 sound posts. See, on the E string you don't hear so much, but here we go. Oh my god, it's such a hollow, flat sound, I can't handle it! Ah! No! Can't handle it. Alright, I've got to get this thing back out. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. It's horrible, horrible. Okay, now I have the normal sound post, the 1 sound post, and again. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the second sound post out, so the real sound post. So next the instrument's going to be without a sound post. Now I really can't do this for too long because the moment the sound post is out, there's a lot of pressure on the top plate. So here we go. Out it goes. Oh dear. You can hear it rolling around in there. It's horrible. Okay, here we go. Can you hear like how shallow and flat the sound sounds? So there you go. The sound post is such an important part of the violin and in creating that violin sound. Without it, it's a totally different instrument. It's flat, it doesn't carry. A big part of the sound post is activating the back, and the back is like a reflector plate that reflects the sound out of the F holes and right down the end of the hall. So if that is missing, like if the back doesn't get activated, the instrument stays really quietly and introverted. Now here's a few pointers about looking after your sound post. First, if your sound post ever falls out on your instrument, make sure you just take down the E and the A string. Take down the E and the A string so that there's no tension on that side of the instrument, because you need to get the violin to a violin maker as soon as possible, but don't keep playing it because you will actually do damage to the instrument. So take it down just take the notes down just a little bit. Next, you take it to a properly trained violin maker. No, don't take it to a violinist or violin teacher that has bought one of these and decided they can do it, unless you're in some outer-lying region where you have no access to a violin maker. Then you might have to do that, especially if you've got a concert coming up or something like that. Also, if your instrument isn't sounding the best, sometimes adjusting the sound post can make a huge difference. I personally like to do the combination of the sound post and bridge together, because for me that's how it can have the biggest effect on the instrument, to try and to make it sound at its very best. Well, that's it for me. This segment is called Ask Olaf, and click the subscribe button. Where is the subscribe button? Down here? There? I think it's down here, or maybe down there. Also, there's a little bell next to the subscribe button, so if you click on that, you're going to find out every time I do a new video. And I've got a whole lot of interesting videos planned over the next little while, and it's all going to be explaining how stringed instruments work and how they can work best for you, and probably a little bit about history and some of the stuff we do as violin makers. So super interesting stuff. So please click subscribe and click on the little bell. Which side is it on? I have no idea. Anyway, it's been good chatting. Till next time, see ya.